So years ago, I was in school. Too expensive, way too expensive. And eventually the money runs dry.
I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I didn't feel like wasting, $200,000 trying to figure that out.
College loans, I didn't want to pull out those loans.
Was working about 6 jobs and trying to get money to go to school.
I was not in a very comfortable place in life. Bad decisions, just placed in the wrong environment.
I wanted to improve myself in various different ways.
I figured, why not the military? It's something I never took seriously, but I knew was a viable option for the position I was in.
I enlisted into the Air Force straight after high school graduation.
The main recruiter that was recruiting me was like, oh, you should do something in like building houses or this and that. And I'm thinking, I was like 19 at the time. I'm thinking like, oh, that's boring. What? I don't want to go into the Army to build houses.
My mom's dad was in the Navy, and I barely got to know him because he died when I was 6. And so I chose the Navy over all the other forces because I thought it would help me get to know him a little bit better.
I enlisted in the Marine Corps because I felt as though it was the most physically demanding.
They show me this video of 19 Delta, of guys on motorcycles and jumping ramps and coming out of water and all this and that. I'm like, whoa, that's what I want to do. Then the recruiter turns around and looks at the other one. Hey, he wants to be a 19 Delta. And they give each other a thumbs up. We got one. We got one here. That was why I chose the job.
I got a chance to experience my brother being deployed, and it really motivated me.
The first thing I wanted to do was just immediately get in.
Going into boot camp, kind of expected the worst going into it, and I was not let down.
The first day of boot camp sucks.
It was very surreal.
Getting off that bus and have that realization of everything you were once before is completely different now.
Very chaotic and hard to get used to being wrong at every single thing I did.
Oh, you didn't do this right, push-ups. Oh, you didn't say this right, push-ups. You didn't do anything right, push-ups. Everybody, push-ups. You're breathing, push-ups.
They keep you up for about 36 hours, and you're yelled at the whole time.
You learn to, stand at attention real quick and just not get singled out from the pack.
Definitely don't show up with color in your hair that's not natural. Don't bring makeup, it's not worth it. Female drill sergeants will get on you.
Came right here and he started yelling at me, Baggio, you better shave that right now, Baggio. God, what the hell am I doing here?
It was awkward. It was kind of shocking. Really, really focusing on folding shirts and making sure there's no creases in them. Nobody taught me about this. I just thought we were just gonna go into obstacle course and learn how to march.
I understood that they were trying to break you down to build you back up. So understanding that and going in with that, I knew that everything they were going to throw at me, it wasn't personal. It was that they were trying to build me up as a soldier.
I hated every moment of training, but I would tell myself Muhammad Ali's quote, don't quit, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. And that's what I thought about my military service, as being a stepping stone into something greater.
When you first got there and we were all fresh, new kids who were like, we want to help out, we want to change the war. But the first time that a bullet went by and they tried to blow us up, all of that went out the window.
I was in a civil engineering squadron, so we did everything from just building and sustaining life. So electrical generators, construction, HVAC equipment, plumbing. But my job specifically, we did maintenance on generators.
I was a Russian language analyst. I was a CTI, ended up being a petty officer second class when I got out. I got farmed out to work for NSAW at Fort Meade, and beyond that, I can't really comment any further.
I served on USS George H.W. Bush as a mass communications specialist. I was a videographer, a graphic designer, a photographer, and a journalist, and a bunch of other different things. And
I was 25 Quebec, so I was a multi-channel systems operator. At first was sent to South Korea, where I worked on a team under 315 Battalion. We were some of the only teams along the peninsula who ran missions. And then after that, I was sent to 10th Mountain, where I got the awesome chance to be a part of standing up 10th DIVARTY, 10th Mountain Division Artillery, and I ran satellite terminals for them.
My job was combat camera. I was a photographer in the Marine Corps. Even though most of the time I was doing like promotion photos and command portraits and stuff. Really neat being able to take pictures and then later on find my pictures in random places published and I didn't even know about it.
The thing I enjoyed the most about my time in was the travel. I was stationed 3 years in Hawaii. It's my first base. And then I got to go to Korea for a year, and then 2.5 years in Germany, all through Europe and Asia. It was like a nice little world travel experience in 7 years.
I ended up going to Kentucky for training, Benning for airborne school, Alaska for my duty station, a brief stop in Germany, then got to go to Kuwait, then Iraq.
I got to go to a lot of places. The longest I was in South Korea for 14 months. We were stationed at Camp Humphreys, and we did a lot of missions by going up by the DMZ. I've slept in a lot of woods, and I think the worst, to tell you the truth, was monsoon season and snow up to your thighs. It's not fun sleeping outside.
That's when we pulled into the port in Oman called Duqm. They sent me topside on my ship with a telephoto lens, and they gave me a 9mm pistol. I said, all right, what you're doing here is you're going to be taking photos of the geography, and if you see a sniper, you got a 9mm pistol with you, so you should be fine. And I said, what? I'll take a shot at him if I get a chance, I suppose. But anyways, while we were up there, at one point we hear this tremendous pop. A bunch of people duck, other people point their weapons at the Omanians, they point back at us, and it's like, oh crap. I was sitting on the edge of the flight deck thinking, I could die here. What the f?
Even though I was combat camera, I wasn't stationed in a place where I was able to deploy, so it was really interesting having to see my job field operate a little bit differently than how I had anticipated it or how I was exactly trained to do it.
It's funny because I joined the Navy to see the world and be a spy and all this kinds of crazy stuff, and once I finished with DLI, I got sent out to Fort Meade, and I worked in an office in a cubicle for 4.5 years on a 12-on, 12-off watch. If you count boot camp, I spent time on a ship, but they have that one that Disney designed in boot camp that they send you through all your rigmarole, but no, I never spent any time on a ship. The biggest ship I've ever been on is my buddy's 54-foot houseboat.
When you're out to sea, you make friends with the people who work with you pretty quick. But that friendship, to me, means a lot more, because we go through so much together. I have made some of the best buddies I've ever made, and I came to be closer with those guys and girls more than the people who actually were my family.
You're connecting with these people that, we come from a lot of different backgrounds, and being able to get all these guys together and being able to put them together and make us work as a team.
We kind of had to build our own family, especially me, and till this day, I have a squad from AIT training to South Korea to coming back to the States and all the other duty stations that we all stuck together till this day. We
had Jason. He was a bit older, but he was like our big brother, the class clown that we would say, the guy who always tried to make you laugh. That would be Holiday. My gunner, probably one of the craziest, nastiest, funniest person that you'll ever meet. Then you had Rango, this like little short Mexican guy that was he had so much fire in him, and he was always on top of everybody. And Wakeman, my medic. Crazy, crazy dude, but he knew how to do his job. We took care of each other.
It's kind of hard to explain because I can't really talk about my job, but we supported 4 deployed assets on a 24/7 watch floor. And some of the reports that I wrote ended up going to people's desks that were very, very, very high up in the chain of command. At the end of the day, it's like when I think back to what my grandfather did in the Navy, it is worlds apart from what I was doing.
There's so many times where when I was in, I was like, man, I hate so much about this. I hate the hours. I hate having to work so hard. I hate never knowing whether or not I'm doing my job right. You really do learn to embrace the suck.
When we're in the military, it's something that we would say when you're in the suck, you hate it. It's the worst. You want to get out.
You got lousy food, you got, horrible hours, everything's dirty and everything else like that.
Some days you're just doing just the most monotonous, droning task and just kind of shooting the shit with like whoever's in your shop, trying to make things entertaining. And then some days are chaotic, like stressful, overworked. You never know what kind of day you're gonna get because anything could happen out of nowhere.
We had this young guy. He was 21. His name was Joseph Naglak, and he was hit by the propeller of a plane on the flight deck of my ship, the USS George H.W. Bush. It was my job to take the photos of his body, of the blood, of the bones, and everything else that was on the flight deck that day. It was that moment that lives with me today. In the coming days, I would help take the photos of his fly off from the carrier when they draped the American flag over his coffin. I would, in the coming weeks, interview his friends, his family, his not ex, but his fiance, and everyone else that knew him, because I wrote a story about him.
My job being an office job, when I talk to people who are overseas, boots on the ground, getting shot at and having mortars thrown over their heads, it really makes me feel like I didn't contribute as much as I maybe could have. And it's an interesting psychological issue, maybe just for me personally, because I kept people safe when they were out deployed. So I was kind of one of the, say, the eyes in the sky, if you will, for a lot of our vessels that were going overseas. And it was my job to keep them safe, One of the things they always told us is you might not be the pointy end of the spear, but you're definitely part of the spear. And being part of the spear, it doesn't have quite as much impact. I always feel like I did less than the guys who were over there, putting their lives on the line literally every day.
When I got injured, it created a condition that spread throughout my entire body, shutting my organs down.
And then I heard a shot. At this time, I thought I just got startled because of the shot. The bullet went in, snapped my femur into 5 pieces, and then ricocheted up in my body, and it got stuck there. They take me in the chopper, and then they take me out. Well, I ended up being in Germany for a good amount of time. That's where my surgery took place, and then I ended up at Walter Reed.
My last day in the service was different than a lot of people, but the same as a lot of people too. I got medically retired after almost 6 years. I was injured back in 2014 and led to a lot of different conditions. So I had no choice but to get out. So for me, it was hard. It was really hard because the Army is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do it for 20 years. I wanted to keep going up in ranks and training other soldiers and keep putting them forward. And then train those soldiers who are going to fill my boots later. However, life had a different path, and I had to figure it out the hard way.
It was at the end of an incredibly long year when I left the military. We had gone out to sea 124 days that year. And that's the time where I really came to depend on the people I was working with. Friends, family, really. So leaving them for me was hard. On the drive away from Norfolk, Virginia, and seeing my ship in the rearview mirror for what will be the last time for a long time, because I do plan on visiting it again, I got teary. I thought about everything I was leaving, and I was going into a future where I do have a plan, I do have goals, but it was so, I want to say, scary leaving that network behind and going into the future on my own.
I had this security blanket, per se, of the military, and then it started becoming tough because you don't have that backup. You don't have those people behind you anymore. Once you're out, it just feels like you're out. They don't really respond to you anymore or really see you as you're in anymore. You're gone. You're a civilian now.
First day out. It was like happy, sad, scared, excited at the same time. I don't know, I just started looking back at my last shop in Germany. Like, I miss them. They're like my family. I mean, thank God there's Facebook. Like, still keep in touch, but just leaving them feels like it's quiet. Like, really quiet.
My wife got a job overseas in England, so I followed her out there. Yeah, it took me a while to find a job, but you also have to consider that I was in a different country where I didn't have, any work history in that country. I didn't even have credit in that country, and yet I still was able to find a job. And yeah, I was working in a warehouse. I was doing manual labor, and after doing what I was doing in the Navy, a lot of people would have said, "Man, why did you take that job?" And I took that job because I needed a job. And I ended up working my way up the ranks. I started in the warehouse, and then I worked in my way to the sales team. And by the time I finished, I was head of the department that sold to Amazon.
Leaving the service was definitely something that wasn't easy for me. Going into the Marine Corps, I envisioned myself as a lifer, and for various reasons, it didn't pan out that way. And I think for me, it was a little bit hard because I had to find what my goal was after getting out, and it was hard for me to try and adjust. And now it took me a while to figure out what my goal was. Now that I have it figured out, that's why I'm back in college.
Starting school for me was not too difficult, I want to say. It's definitely different. I have a lot more free time than I used to. I remember searching for backpacks online prior to getting out, and I seen all these backpacks with USB chargers in them. I thinking, what the hell happened to backpacks? They used to be so simple.
Yeah, my first semester here was pretty rough. Like, I remember my first group project. I'm just so used to everyone cooperating with each other, looking out for each other, just kind of making sure the task gets done. It's not like that here.
Ooh, my first day coming to school was definitely scary. It was definitely a huge change compared to what I was used to. At first, I really didn't think that I was going to be able to connect with anybody whatsoever on this campus. So me coming to school the first day, it was definitely hard to adjust around younger students.
Being a student veteran is it's different. I mean, the kids, we'll call them kids because that's pretty much what they are. I mean, yeah, they're young adults, but they're still basically kids. A lot of these kids don't have the perspective of working hard and achieving something. And I don't know if it's because they're not paying for their class or if they just don't care. It was always ground into me in the service, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, it's unacceptable. So when I see kids show up to class late, and they're totally nonchalant. They put their books down. They're not flustered. They haven't been running. They got no excuse. It's just like, what are you doing here, man? What are you wasting your money for if you can't even show up on time? Get out of here.
A lot less discipline, a lot more hunched shoulders when people are sitting, a lot more people speaking when they shouldn't be. And that was tough at first. And the first day I did tell a kid to shut up, and, that's just how we spoke. Well, that's okay, whatever. That's the lingo. Here you get in trouble, people get upset, people cry, all that stuff. You get reported.
Of course, either they're on their phones or they're just not interacting with anybody else. It's like, you don't see the connection, so it's really hard to connect with some of these kids.
I find myself getting frustrated sometimes at the lack of effort that I see from some of the students who aren't taking it seriously, but I also feel that they haven't had the same life experience as I have, so they don't necessarily know the importance of the college education.
It made me a bit jaded. I really hate group projects. That's what everyone says. But I really, really didn't like it because I was used to a lot more teamwork.
Deadlines are still here, but it's not the same as the military where someone's, expecting you to do the job correctly and doing it on time. Whereas here, you're able to kind of get away with pushing a deadline back if you have the right professor. And
Well, I'm not saying that these students haven't gone through hard things in their lives, but it's harder when they start acting out and getting loud and like in class or doing things that would trigger a veteran, and they don't even know that they're doing it. So that can be frustrating.
I'm really interactive in class, and I think it gives some students a false sense that I know what I'm talking about when I really don't. I'm just trying to engage with the teacher because that's how I learn. And a lot of those students who are in my classes, I've found have kind of looked up to me as a mentor, and it's kind of almost a mentor protege type situation. They ask me questions and I try to help them through it, which is great for me because one of the best ways to learn is to teach somebody else how to do something.
I have not had too difficult of a time fitting in, I think. At least I think. I don't know. I have been told I can be slightly rough around the edges. I've not really felt like I didn't belong. There are plenty of people who are older, who come from different countries and things like that. And overall, I think it's actually a pretty accepting community here at this school.
I hear my classmates talk about their lives and the stuff they're going through. I respect it because I came from there, and I kind of see myself talking through their problems like it's like a huge deal. Like, oh my God, I need a monster. I'm so tired and steady. Like, okay. Yeah, go get yourself a monster, bro. Like, but I don't, I just, it makes me appreciate how far I came.
As veterans and service members within the school, I can honestly say it's good to have like the professors who have an understanding or who are understanding.
My expectations, honestly, when I first started college was just to come in, do my classes, go home, and not really try and talk to a lot of the college students.
For the most part, yes, people do know I'm a veteran. I certainly speak a little differently sometimes. I'm more direct, I think. I also speak to my professors a lot, and typically I do struggle with homework a little bit sometimes, or classwork and everything else like that. I have a 4.0 currently, my GPA, but that's because I speak to my professors, and a lot of times the fact that I am a veteran does come up. So as a result, a lot of my classmates kind of learned that pretty quick because, they may just ask, oh, so Joe, what was it like in, deploying? How could what you've done apply to this class? Things like that. And people kind of figure it out that way.
My classmates might know a part of me, but I generally don't leak out who I actually am and what I've done throughout my life. Generally, I just don't tell people I'm a vet because it's not something I wear on my sleeve. I wear like my personality on my sleeve, and that's what I want people to know.
It was hard because you feel like you don't have any connection. Do you feel like you want to talk to them, or do they even want to talk to you? And what are you to do? Do you just be like, oh, I'm the veteran guy, and yada yada yada, and tell them my whole life experience? I'm not gonna do that.
It's not something I don't really go around telling people, hey, I'm a veteran, because being a veteran, I think, is something that I chose to do, and I don't necessarily have to throw that in other people's faces.
My first professor, she knew I was a veteran because I straight up told her, hey, I'm a vet. I just got out. I have no clue how to school at all. Please teach me this blackboard thing. The rest of my professors, I don't tell them at all. I don't feel a need to. I look at them like they're the professionals. Yeah, we have this thing in the Air Force. It's called a SME, which stands for a subject matter expert. And that's how I look at my professors.
For the most part, I do hang out with a lot of other veterans. They understand where you're coming from. I think a lot of veterans also understand what being a friend means.
I definitely find it much easier to communicate with the student veterans here on campus. It's a lot more comfortable of an atmosphere knowing that they've experienced a lot of the same things that I have.
In the Vets Lounge, it's almost like automatic. Like, I could see a new face in there that I just haven't seen just because of different semesters. And we would just easily jump into a conversation and rift.
We're intermixed definitely as veterans or service members, but we can always pick each other out of a crowd, I don't think. anyone else would really know unless we start talking about our experiences.
Veterans understand what you go through with them. Whereas here with civilians, you don't want to start immediately say, hey, let's go out to eat or anything else like that because, it's like you're being too pushy or being too needy, things like that. And, it's presented different challenges,
Good thing I had the backup of the Veterans Lounge and being able to go to the veterans and being able to talk to them. I probably wouldn't even come back. I'd probably do one semester, even half a semester, and not come back because I wouldn't have that support.
And I think it helps that I can be comfortable, talk about a lot of the things that, even though aren't the biggest part of who I am, are a huge part of who I am today.
You just meet people who are going through the same thing as you. They've already been through it. They've gone through worse, or they just gradually got out. And that's definitely where I found a better place for me. So it was easier to come to school every day.
To tell you all the things that they do, I'd be here like in an hour or 2 hours to tell you everything that they do for us here. And it's such an amazing, I've been to at least 2 other colleges or campuses where there wasn't that much attention to detail to veterans. Anything that I need, they're there for me. And if it's just school related or just life related, even through the best of my times, even my worst of time, they've always been there. They actually care about you. They actually want to sit down and listen to you. They want to hear about your day. They want to hear about your life. They want to talk to you. They want to make sure you're doing everything right. They want to make sure, literally, what a family would be, that's what they are.
When people thank me for my service, I try to take it for what it is, which would be a act of kindness. Like they're trying to be grateful for it. Even though I don't think my service is something that I need to be thanked for.
For me, it's harder to say, and I think for everyone else who has lost people within their units and their squads, it's harder for them to say, you're welcome to that statement of people thanking us for our service, because in our heads, we're saying you should be thanking the ones who didn't come home.
At times we make joke of it. We make a joke where we say it to each other, to other veterans, just to make it a joke. But I know for me, being hurt, I heard it a lot. Being at Walter Reed, I heard that a lot, and it was just constant, and it's every single day. Especially, let's say you had a horrific injury, that's all you would really hear is thank you for your service, thank you for your service. I think people had just been programmed to just say, to be like, oh, well, that'll make them feel better.
Some people you can really tell it's heartfelt, and some people it's like an auto response. But then others, you can tell just by the way that they say it, the inflection in their voice and the emotion on their face, that they really do actually mean that they're thankful. And it's kind of interesting from a socio-psychological perspective to look at those people and where they came from and why they might be so thankful. Most of the time it's because someone else in their family has served.
When I first got into the military, I felt deeply uncomfortable when people thanked me for my service because at that point I hadn't really done anything. And one of our instructors had to explain, well, I mean, if you haven't done anything, think about it as what you may do for your country. And years later, I got out. And now when people thank me for my service, I think not so much that I've earned that thank you, but I think back to everything I did. I took part in joint exercises with, different European countries, with different Middle Eastern countries. I spent many, many nights out at sea. I missed Thanksgivings and Christmases and birthdays. When my dad had his chemotherapy, I missed all of that.
I kind of come from a perspective where I'm always feeling like I don't deserve the recognition or I didn't do enough. So if someone ever says thank you for your service, I kind of feel bad. I kind of feel like I shouldn't deserve it, but I don't want them to think that. So I just say thank you back and kind of keep it moving.
In my opinion, I think people who served during the wars and came back with battle scars and all this kind of stuff deserve way more of the thanks on Veterans Day than I do. My friend James, he was an FMF corpsman, and he's lost both his legs above the knee, one of his arms just below the elbow, and on his right hand, all he's got left is 2 fingers and a thumb. That's the kind of guy that deserves to be thanked on Veterans Day, not guys like me.
When it comes to Veterans Day, I think about the people that are still in that I know of. I think about the people that I know that have gotten out. Kind of just think about them and hope that they're on the right track, that, they're progressing through their lives and assimilating back into, being a civilian. I don't even like the word civilian because it just feel like it separates us from who we are. We're just regular people.
I feel more obligated to go out and do things for that holiday, seeing as I have those that can no longer do so. So I think for me, Veterans Day is a very important day for me to actually go out, celebrate, make sure I keep in touch with my fellow veterans, and really just reflect on my service and those that I met through it.
On Veterans Day, I think often of the people I know that did die in service. The guy who died on my flight deck, Joseph Naglak, that's a name I'm not going to forget, I think, for many, many years, if ever. I think about the people who, committed suicide. Unfortunately, the military does have a problem with suicide. And my old ship, actually recently, 3 people committed suicide in a week. I think about, the guys I know, Marines or airmen or soldiers, even Coast Guardsmen who get hurt or killed in this line of work. And their experiences are mine. They miss weddings, they miss births of children, they miss holidays and all that. And I am thankful for what they did. And I know it's not Memorial Day necessarily, it's Veterans Day. But I think about all the other guys and girls that did just as much of me, if not more. And the other ones who made the ultimate sacrifice or decided to end it because they couldn't handle things anymore.
When I got injured, it created a condition that spread throughout my entire body, shutting my organs down. And for the last 3 years, I've been waiting, but I just got word that I will be receiving my transplant on Veterans Day this year. And all my doctors and nurses have just completely warmed my heart by saying, who better than to give a transplant to on Veterans Day than a veteran. And to me, it's just going to be the beginning of a new life for me. I feel like I'll be able to get my life back.
Well, there's a lot of things I think about Veterans Day. One of the first things I think about is my friends who passed away. I had some great friends who I served with, and they were just amazing people. For the rest of my life, I'm going to be grateful and thankful for them, and I need to honor them and for us not to forget about them. And I know there's Memorial Day for that too, but anytime I can think about them and honor them in any way, I will. And, always grateful for anybody who decides to put the uniform on, anybody who decided to put the uniform on, thankful for them. Anybody in the future that decides to put the uniform on, thank you for them. And the people that are currently serving, thank you for them. It's something that, not everybody can do, and that's fine. And I'm not saying it in a negative way. It's something that not everybody can do. Only, like they always say, the select few and maybe the crazy. But it's just something that we got to honor that too.
I gained another purpose going down the route I was going. I didn't see much in sight for me, but I saw the uniform as a way out, and I ended up falling in love with it.
I missed the Marine Corps a lot. It was one of the most important times of my life for making me who I am today, and I definitely miss the people and the atmosphere.
Do I miss serving? In some ways, yes, I do, and in other ways, no, I really don't. One of the things I miss is the camaraderie. We'd always go someplace and have a breakfast, and we'd get off at like 7:30 in the morning, and we'd all go hang out and we'd all part our separate ways. But I think it really brought us closer together, and I kind of miss that kind of stuff. And there's definitely a chance that kind of thing's going to happen again, but I feel like the civilian world just doesn't quite do it the same way that the military does. There's not that like sense of family that you get with complete strangers when you're in the civilian world. So I do miss that. Do I miss going to work at 7 o'clock at night and getting out at 7 o'clock in the morning? No, heck no, I don't.
Yeah, when I got out, like, I was a little nervous, you know, just a different change of life, kind of going back to my roots. But I had better tools equipped now from what the military's given me with the experience. So I was ready. I was ready to hit the ground running.
Being in the military, it's a definite love and hate relationship. You hate it when you're there, you love it when you get out. If someone asked me, hey, Joe, hey, Baggio, do you want to go out to sea next week? I would absolutely do it. Strange to say, but at the same time, I don't want to do it again either. I don't know how to describe it. I work for a grocery store now, and it's just, of course, it's not the same. I don't have those buddies, and I don't sleep next to them. I don't eat with them. I don't argue with them or play video games or work together. Not like we did in the military, and that was lonely for me when I first got out. I came to depend on those relationships, and once that was gone, it was difficult.
I think being out in the real world has put it that, you know, we're alone, and in a sense we're not alone, but we are, because, you know, this has been like a very difficult time in a sense for me, because all my friends in platoon and everything, you're part of that unit. It's like they just took you a part of that and dropped you in somewhere when you're supposed to be with this unit, but you're there by yourself. And then I'm dealing with recovery and everything, and nobody's there. And not to say like my family wasn't there, but at the time I felt much closer to my military family than my actual family, which was crazy to say, but it was true. You know what I'm saying? And that was rough for me in the sense that got taken away from me.
My NCOs definitely looked out for me and helped me become something I never thought I'd be able to be. And by giving me that opportunity now, I'd never take it back. And if I got the chance to put on my boots again tomorrow, I would.